live.
We're live,
All right.
and you're recording for sure?
Yes, I'm recording.
Okay, please. Is everything right? Please.
We're gonna keep doing that until the
Forever.
End,
Yeah, that's
just
gonna
because
be
of that
the
one
thing.
time.
Yeah. All right. So today we have a Walking Dead themed episode. We just watched the new Rick show. We're both really big Walking Dead fans for many years. I stopped watching around season 9. You've seen everything?
I've seen everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So
literally everything.
So we'll talk a little bit about this show and what we think about Walking Dead in general. Let's take it from the top. Why don't you give me some thoughts on this first episode that we just watched?
I thought it was really good. It was better than any of all the other spin-offs that they've done. I thought that in terms of explaining where Rick has gone, I thought they did it pretty well. It was very exposition heavy, but how else could you do it? And it also surprised me. It took some turns that I did not expect, especially with the ending. I was not expecting them to reunite Rick and Michonne that quickly. Now I see what they're doing. Now we're gonna go see her journey and how it is she got there and everything. But it was an interesting way that I did not expect for it to go. I also thought that, I don't think this for all of them, but some of the side characters weren't completely awful. That's something that The Walking Dead has had an issue with for a long time. Every time they introduce somebody new, they're just lame or cringy. Some of them exhibited those traits in this episode, but not all of them. And yeah, I mean, overall, I really liked it. Like, I'd say 8 out of 10 episode for me. In terms of Walking Dead. Like, it did feel like original Walking Dead a little bit.
Okay, that's fair. I will say I do disagree with you on the side characters. I thought that Rick's, that early 2000s comedy trope of Rick's best friend was so goofy.
Oh.
That dude was goofy as fuck.
Why? What was goofy about it?
It felt so out of tone with Walking Dead. Like, there's no other character that to that extent.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in that sense they could have toned the character down a little bit more, or just gave it a different kind of friendship between them. Like, 'cause I like what they're doing there, that he's made friends and everything. But sure, I won't completely disagree with
I think that the co-captain, whatever.
The black guy?
No, the South African woman.
Oh, right.
I thought she was really bland. I didn't like her.
She was. That's the one that I think that's my least favorite one. She was bland. I didn't understand anything she was saying.
Generally, I think that I would say it's like 7.5 out of 10, something like that. I thought it was pretty solid. I felt satisfied with their explanation as to what happened with Rick all these years.
Yeah.
The world building was really elevated.
Yeah.
When they said that they were living in a city of 200,000, I was like, oh shit,
Yeah.
Things are really changing now. They had all this tech that we haven't seen in the Walking Dead world before. That was really cool. I really liked that they finally made him comic accurate with the hand.
Yeah.
That was cool to see.
Yeah, I like that too. I thought it was really quick.
Making up for lost time.
Sure, they started the episode that way, obviously, to set the stakes and everything, and because the first question people have is like, I mean, if Rick's been captured, did he really try to escape? And it's like, yeah, he literally cut his own hand trying to escape. And I get that, but it did feel a little bit sudden. Like, it just kind of like, okay, like, we're just there already. He's gone. The hand is gone. Like, there was no build up to it or anything like that. It's just gone. And it's interesting that they decided to do that because Robert Kirkman, the writer of the comics, said that cutting off Rick's hand is one of the biggest mistakes he made writing the comic. And he said that because it really limited what that character could do afterwards in terms of just anything. Because now he had to take into consideration that he was handicapped. So I don't know if the writers, Scott Gimple and the showrunners, knew that and just disregarded that. I mean, I'm wondering to see how they're going to adapt. I mean, he's flying a chopper in this episode.
That's true.
I don't know
I don't
know how that...
that's a good point.
Yeah, I don't know how that works with two hands. I guess you could just, I don't know. I know that they teach them, but I just found it interesting because I thought they weren't going to do that.
I disagree with you there where I think I loved how it was like straight to the point. Like that, that was in the first 10 minutes or whatever where it was like, oh shit, okay.
Yeah.
The shit's going down.
To be clear, I didn't hate it.
I liked the ending. It hooked me. I want to see more. And I want to see Michonne's side of things and where they go from there. It's kind of up in the air, but something curious to hear from you. Like, where do you think this show is going to take us?
Well, obviously, I mentioned that I think we're the next episode and the episode after that, maybe even we're going to see Michonne's journey and how she got to that point. But I also think that they're going to start, I think they're going to be cutting back and forth. I think they're going to be cutting back and forth from Michonne's journey and then showing what's happening in the now, like past and present. Another option too is I think that they just get through the Michonne stuff, and then catches up to what's happening now, like maybe in episode 4 or 5, because it's only 6 episodes.
That's what they did with this episode, though. It was the past until the very end of the episode.
Right, but we, as the audience, did not know that Michonne and Rick are going to reunite like that. Now we do. So them going all the way to the back to show Michonne's journey, it's like, I kind of care to know how she found him, but also, like, I want to see this story that they set up now.
The next episode will be about how Michonne got to that point. I don't think we're going to see too much past that. And then the following 4 episodes will be about what Rick and Michonne do together.
So you think episode 2 is going to be completely cover the bases?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a possibility too. It's just The Walking Dead has a tendency to drag out storylines.
But when you have 6 episodes, there's no room to drag.
You'd be surprised if you saw some of the other spin-offs that also only have 6 episodes.
So what do you think Rick and Michonne are going to do?
Honestly, I have no fucking idea. Because this isn't part of the comics anymore. This is something completely separate. I mean, it would make sense for Michonne to just take Rick and for them to go back to the like New Alexandria and all that stuff. But like in terms of that, doesn't make sense for the show, right?
Also, Rick is like done. He gave up on finding Michonne and he kind of moved on. So I think there's going to be some conflict there where.
Really?
I think so. Yeah.
You think but like he gave up right when he found her. Like he like barely had given her. You know what I mean?
Know how much time passed?
He literally said, "I'm in," and that's like the moment where he like.
Oh, he verbally said it, but it showed like a year passed, and he's like working on the fucking base.
Right, but like I don't know, man. I hope they don't pull that shit. He landed right in front of her. Now it's like, oh fuck the fucking Sierra. There's no way he's gonna have conflict about protecting the people.
Yeah,
when he found Michonne, like, don't give me that nonsense.
So you think they're just gonna run away together? That seems too easy.
That does seem too easy, but that's what makes sense. Now the writers wrote themselves into a corner here doing this.
Well, they have it planned out. There's going to be some obstacles that prevent them from just going straight back to Alexandria.
Yeah, I mean, Rick did like press his fucking beacon, which I'm sure is like some signal to send backup. I guess one huge plot twist they can do is that Rick puts Michonne in cuffs and takes her back to the CRM or something like that.
I think what would have to happen is they don't have enough time to escape. Somebody finds them and they're forced to go back.
That would be understandable.
Yeah.
So you said you hated all the side characters. What do you think of the black guy?
I thought he was the most interesting one.
And
then you killed him.
And then they killed him off. I don't know the name of the actor, but General Beale.
He looks familiar.
He's John Locke from Lost. I don't know if you ever saw
Lost. Yeah. That's who I know him from.
Yeah, that's how I know him from too. I find him interesting purely because of the actor. Because I like that actor, and in Lost he's fucking amazing. So I want to see where they go with him. I hope they don't make him some mustache twirling villain. I hope like there's some complexity to him. I hope they kill off the woman.
Yeah, she sucks.
She definitely sucks.
And it's hard to understand her.
It's so hard. The black guy was hard to understand too.
Yeah.
That was like a weird accent. What is that? Like Jamaican?
No, dude. He's American.
No, there was something.
He's from like Baltimore or some shit.
There was something to his voice.
Look it up.
There was something. There was like he was talking like normal, but then he would be like, he sounded like Zimbabwe or something like that.
He got that Baltimore accent or something like that. We'll look it up where he's from.
Okay, and then either I'll be right or you'll be wrong.
No, you're definitely wrong. In general, I thought they gave Rick way too much responsibility. And I know that was like a common thing where he's like, I escaped 4 times, and you still want to... But it's like, I'm not going to let you drive a helicopter when I know what you've done.
You're right, but also, you know, they were talking about how they see... He's the only one that's tried to escape that many fucking... I think he's the only one that's ever tried to escape, right? Is that what they said?
Well, the other woman, that's why they're paired together, was that she also tried to escape once.
Yeah, so he's the only one that's tried to escape this many times. So they find him interesting, or they find like that there's something in there. That's why the black guy recruited him, because, you know, he knows that someone like that can lead or get people to follow him and stuff.
Ultimately, he did win. Like, the black guy, he got what he wanted from Rick because Rick gave in.
What'd you think of this is a minor thing, but what'd you think of the intro, the title sequence?
The only thing that they could have done to make it good was what House of the Dragon did, which was literally just copy it.
Yeah, which is kind of what they should have done, honestly. This is kind of like The Walking Dead's House of the Dragon, if you think about it.
There's too many shows now.
Well, yeah, but this is like the Rick one.
Well, this is an interesting question. Do you think that they're spreading themselves too thin with all these shows?
Yeah, I do. I 100%. I didn't think that Dead City was needed. The Daryl a show centered around Daryl, I think, made sense. A theme of The Ones Who Live is like the love story between Rick and Michonne. I think that's pushing it a little bit too much for me. Like, because The Walking Dead and Rick and Michonne has never to me been a fucking love story.
Correct.
It's been about post-apocalyptic surviving, protecting like your loved ones or whatever.
The Walking Dead has always been a Rick story. That's the reason I stopped watching it. I stopped watching it after Rick died or whatever, after he left the show, because there was no more story for me. I wasn't invested in it anymore. And I think maybe I could have continued if Carl was involved because it's Rick's legacy. And yes, sure, Judith was there, but like, who the fuck cares about Judith? Carl was there from the beginning. Yeah, and I would have liked to see Carl take Rick's place, or similar to the way that it's done in the comics, where Rick dies and then Carl is the next Rick, basically. I really am confused as to why they didn't. Perhaps you have some clarity?
I do. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes in The Walking Dead. All I know is rumors and stuff that I've seen on Reddit, stuff that I've seen in YouTube comments, stuff that I've seen other YouTubers talk about that claim to have known somebody that knows somebody and this and that. And, you know, from my minimal experience in entertainment, I wouldn't be surprised if some of those rumors are true. Specifically talking about Carl getting killed off in The Walking Dead, the actor had recently bought a house in Atlanta to continue filming the show. So the actor himself was not aware that he was going to get killed off. Usually they let actors know ahead of time that they're going to get killed off, or at least before they make such a big move like that, to purchase a home right next to where they film. Also, when Chandler Riggs was killed off, his dad went on Facebook, wrote a whole rant about how the producers and the writers completely pulled the rug underneath from them because he had just bought a house and they weren't aware that this was going to happen, that he was on contract for another year or this and that.
Wow.
And then he deleted that post after like a week or two. And also because in terms of like the story, it doesn't make sense for them to have killed off Carl right there, because I don't know if you remember, but one of the pivotal moments of that is that Carl started preaching peace to have Rick make peace with Negan. That stuff comes out of nowhere because Carl is the one that fires the first bullet that starts the war. And Carl from season 7, when they met Negan, he's always wanted to. He literally hides in a truck
trying to kill him
and tries to kill him. Like, that change in him being peaceful would have been fine if they like built it up a little more. But like, I remember
they rushed it a little.
Yeah, the next season, he's advising Rick to like do this and that, and also there's a theory that Andrew Lincoln was displeased with the way that they treated Chandler Riggs and the way that they did everything they did.
This is spicy.
Yeah, that's why, because Rick also was signed up for more like contract for more seasons and everything like that. That's part of it's Rick's show. It is Rick's story. So the PR reason that they gave for why they killed Carl was because Rick needed a reason to spare Negan. But I think if you're even an amateur writer, you could find a better reason for Rick to do that. I saw a comment on YouTube that was hilarious that I have to say here, that Rick having had chicken nuggets earlier that day and being in a good mood would have been a better reason than to him need Carl to be preaching all this and then die to spare Negan.
I don't know about that, but
no, it is.
They could have picked another less important character.
I think they planned to pick somebody else.
Yeah.
I think it was supposed to be Morgan, because Morgan is the one that he's the one that was preaching peace, and he's the one that builds the cell that Negan ends up staying in. I think that was the original plan, to have Morgan keep preaching to Rick. He's the only one, other than Carl, that could have convinced Rick to do this, because it's Morgan. It was they're buddies, right? Maybe AMC didn't think that Chandler Riggs had the potential to carry on after they eventually offed Rick the way the comics did it. There's some people that didn't like Chandler Riggs' acting. Like, that was something that was criticized a lot, especially as he was getting older. Some people didn't like the way that, found it like he wasn't a good actor. So some people are saying that maybe AMC agreed and they wanted to get rid of him and bring in
Judith, who's so annoying. I hate Judith, man.
I don't think
She's
she's
like
that
7 and she's bossing everyone around.
I don't think she's that bad.
It's nepotism, man.
I don't think she's that bad. Chandler Riggs might have been asking for too much money. That happens a lot in Hollywood, that they'll off somebody when they just don't want to give them more money, because every season that they have to renew a new contract, and they make more money. I mean, it's all hearsay, but in terms of like them getting fucked over like that, that's pretty like low key confirmed. Like, it doesn't make sense for them to have killed Carl like that.
Okay, yeah. So, yes, the shows are spreading everyone thin. I would have liked to see just them have taken a break from the main Walking Dead show. Just be like, we're not going to make any new seasons.
That would have been a good idea.
For 2 years, 3 years, and then we're going to start back up again with the whole cast.
Yeah.
That would be probably my preferred option. And then, or B, to end the Walking Dead main show and then to just have one Succession show. You can't have Walking Dead without Rick, and that's the reason why I stopped watching it. You need The Walking Dead ends when Rick ends.
Well, Rick remained there in spirit.
Oh, fuck off with that shit.
Because of Judith.
Because they talked about him. They talked about him every episode. Every episode after that, they was like, "Hey, Rick, what did?"
Well, yeah. I mean, they have Judith and Daryl. You know, he's a close
Judith
friend.
Isn't enough. I think, like I was saying, Carl could have carried it, but, to some extent. But there was no one else left for me where I was like, what's the point? What's the point without Rick or Carl?
So you didn't have any investment in any of the other characters?
No, it just wasn't the same. I tried. I watched a few episodes, and they started introducing like new characters, the fucking fat musician guy and the deaf girl, and I was
what about Negan?
Who the fuck cares? I love Negan. I think Negan's an awesome character, but I'm not gonna watch the show for Negan. It's not Walking Dead anymore.
Daryl?
I was always like mid on Daryl, actually.
Wow.
Is that a hot take? Listen, I think he's an incredible addition to the show. He obviously wasn't in the comics.
Yeah.
They made the role for him. I think that was incredible. But he's a supporting character. He's not the main hero. He's not the protagonist.
They step him up in the later seasons.
They have to, because he has to fill the void that Rick left.
And I think he does a solid job. They integrate that into the story, kind of like with Daryl, the pressure on Daryl to like lead what's remaining and everything. They do integrate it into the story.
Kind of. It's clear, obviously, Michonne takes Rick's place, and she's not the person I care the most about. Why did you continue?
Well, I mean, I agree. I think it is Rick's story, but I personally thought I loved Daryl. I fucking love Negan. I didn't find Judith as annoying as you did.
She was like running off on her own in the outside of Alexandria.
Just like Carl was back in season 2.
But she's like 7 years old.
And Carl was 7 years old.
But there were no borders. They weren't in a gated community.
Carl would definitely have left anyways. Let's be real. A 7-year-old Carl would have left anyways. So.
Carl was a pussy back then. Like he was scared. He was totally different than Judith. He was annoying in a different way.
Because he grew up in a different world. Judith grew up in this world. I thought her relationship with Negan early on was pretty well done. Like, Negan saves her life.
That's the best part of Judith.
Yeah.
Her dynamic with Negan, I like.
In general, yeah. I mean, The Walking Dead is a show that's been a huge part of my life. So I wasn't gonna stop watching just because Rick left, and I knew that eventually Rick was gonna come back. Like, there's no way they weren't gonna bring him back. So I wanted to keep watching, and I read the comics, so I wanted to see the Whisperers interpreted onto the big screen. I wanted to see the Commonwealth. With Rick leaving, honestly, I thought it gave the show a weird breath of fresh air, because now I was just really curious how they were going to mix things up. They couldn't follow the comics. Like, that was like them taking a complete left turn. Like, no longer were they going to really follow the comics, aside from like main villain points and stuff like that.
This is my problem with Walking Dead in general. And this is coming from someone who loves the show also. Like, watched it for so many years. One of my favorite shows. But it became like a Grey's Anatomy where they're just, killing off... The actors want to leave, so they have to find excuses for them to be written off the show. And sometimes it's done okay, and sometimes it's done in a really bad way. And they do it for so many pivotal characters.
But The Walking Dead has been doing that from the beginning.
Absolutely.
They've been doing that from the beginning. It's not new to like the new seasons.
Absolutely. That's my biggest gripe from season 2 or whatever, for when they first killed off a main character, to starting with Dale, because Dale was supposed to be in the show longer, and then he had a disagreement with the showrunner or something, and they killed him off.
Same with Andrea, T-Dog, Tyrese, like all those characters. I think all those actors wanted off the show.
So shows suffer for that,
yeah,
as opposed to like the comic where it's just coming all from one guy's head. I would have loved to see the vision, the pure vision of Walking Dead. Can you imagine what that would have been like?
I think the comic isn't perfect.
I'm not saying they have to copy it exactly from the comics. I'm saying if there were no disagreements, if they kept the story, like from a story perspective, as pure as possible, how much better the show could have been.
I mean, I think part of it has to do with the fact that all of the actors that signed up for this didn't know it was going to be this big. Like Lauren Cohan, who plays Maggie, she wasn't like into zombies or gore or anything. She didn't care. She was just looking for a job.
Yeah.
But then the show got big and she had to stay on it. And I mean, that happens because you're dealing with people. Like, actors she wanted to do something else and she fucking failed. And she came back. But like, that's unavoidable with shows. Like, you just gotta, it's not really the writer's fault. They just gotta do their best to write them out and write them back in or whatever. Like, I don't fault the show for that. That's just kind of what it is.
It's just life.
Yeah.
You can't control people's lives for 10 plus years.
Yeah.
What do you think is the lowest point of the show?
7 or 8.
That arc sucked.
You didn't like Negan having control over the show, pretty much?
I liked it, but they dragged it way too long. They dragged it. OD. And I thought it was so unlike Rick to be... Yes, he's going to be like morally fucked up or mentally fucked up from witnessing what Negan did. He's going to comply to some extent, but that shit lasted for way too many episodes.
What did you think of the war? Because some people...
I liked it.
Depending on who you ask, some people say season 8 is worse than 7.
No, I liked it. I liked the characters. I liked Dwight, and I liked Trevor from GTA.
Simon.
It's Trevor.
Yeah, it is Trevor. Yeah.
So there were good antagonists, and obviously, I think Negan is the best antagonist of the show. I think he's, which is that a hot take?
No, I think a lot of people think that. I think the governor's
the greatest villain of The Walking Dead.
Well, it's just I think that arc from season that was like the first human villain that they faced, and I liked what they did with that. Like, I really had no issues with that entire thing. Like, with the governor's arc, I thought his introduction was perfect. I think what he did, the effect that he had on the group, was fucking perfect, and I thought his death was fucking perfect. And the fight between him and Rick is fucking perfect. The fight between Rick and Negan at the end of the war, where they're fighting around that tree, is pathetic.
Yeah, it's goofy. That was goofy.
Pathetic.
That was really
goofy. You can tell that they ran out of money and they didn't have the choreographers to teach Andrew Lincoln and Jeffrey Dean Morgan how to like fight like they mean it. They're just playing tag around a tree.
Yeah, that was stupid.
So that's why the governor, to me, low key, yeah, the governor's my favorite one, just because I thought they handled that like class. That to me is like top tier Walking Dead, like seasons 3 and 4.
Yeah. So let's go into a little bit on what do you think are your favorite moments from the show. I remember this so clearly. I was watching this in my living room where Rick's, I don't even remember the context. Rick's fighting some dude and he fucking bites him in the neck.
Okay, yes.
And I literally got out of my chair. I was like, holy shit, this is insane. I remember the season finale when they were in Terminus and they put them all in the storage unit.
They're fucking with the wrong people.
That's how it ended, and you're just like, fuck, dude. That is another scene for me. And then, of course, the season finale when Negan comes, and, someone fucking dies, and they don't show who it is.
Yeah. Look, Dad, taking it like a champ.
And I am like, I'm like, fuck, I have to wait like 6 months to see who it was. And then when that new episode premiered, I was literally like shaking the whole time. It was so tense. That was like peak for me.
Were you surprised by who they picked?
I loved the way they did it because they surprised you with killing Abraham, and then I'm glad they killed Glenn, unfortunately, because it was comics accurate, and I think it was important for the story that happened. So although I didn't want to see Glenn die, I'm glad they stuck with it, and I thought the way they did it was perfect with his fucking eye bulging out the same way that it was in the comics. Even though I remember at the time it was a huge controversy that, this is too violent. And it's like, what fucking show do you think you're watching?
I know, dude. It's because it was a character that was beloved.
It was also the most viewed episode in the entire history of the show, so I think a lot of people tuned in who maybe didn't know what the fuck the show was.
Because there was a lot of hype.
There was a lot of hype for it. Fucking SNL did a skit about it.
So the first moment for me that made me go, oh shit, was actually when Rick kills those two people in the bar.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
That was like the first moment that I was like, this show is for me. The second one was Rick and Shane's encounter at the finale when, you know, they're facing off with the moonlight in the background.
You really believe they're gonna buy whatever bullshit story you cook up?
That was fucking sick. My favorite episode to this day still is the governor attacking the prison with the tank.
We go in. Kill them all.
That whole episode is a moment for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like Daryl throwing the grenade into the tank and blowing it up, and then Rick getting into the fist fight. All that stuff is just beautiful. There's stuff from the later seasons too. I personally love Jesus' death. I thought it was cool. I thought it was badass.
It was a cool death, but again, going back to the Grey's Anatomy shit, it was a goofy ass way to die. Like, plot wise, it was weird that he died in that situation.
I mean, I like how the Whispers implemented horror back into the Walking Dead.
Yes, I did notice that they brought horror. It's like an element of the show again.
Yeah. Something
that hasn't been seen since the first few seasons of the show.
Yeah. And that's part of why, like, adding to your earlier mention, like, I kept watching because it did feel fresh. It felt different. The moment where Rosita and Eugene are hiding and then they hear one of the walkers talk, that moment to me was like, oh shit.
Yeah, that was a good moment.
Or when Eugene like wakes up and he's like, because he goes into a coma or something, and he wakes up and he's like, no, they're not walkers. Like, and he's freaking out. He thinks that they're revolving or some shit.
Yeah.
When Daryl is using the dog to try and route the walkers and they don't listen to him, and he realizes like, what the fuck is going on? Like, that shit was like good. Like, it reached like earlier season Walking Dead levels for me when that stuff was happening. And then they do some creative stuff with like the deaf character that they introduce. Do like a lot of POV shots where they put you in her perspective and you can't hear anything. It's cliche nowadays in Hollywood for them to do that.
Yeah.
But when The Walking Dead did it like a couple years ago,
that was newer.
It was still newer.
It was kind of fresh.
Yeah. So like I don't take points away from that. I mean, you watching it now, you're probably like, oh, whatever. But like back then, it was cool.
I don't know. I saw it back then, and I was like, fuck, I don't know.
And last moment to me, I think Rick's last episode was pretty phenomenal too.
I want to add when Carol goes back to Terminus and kills all of them.
Oh yeah,
that was fucking sick too.
That was a sick episode.
Oh, and obviously look at the flowers.
Oh right, see, I can't believe I forgot about that.
Yeah.
One. That's like one of the best episodes of the show too. Would you say that you have a favorite episode? I mentioned mine.
If I had to say one episode, I would say that 1 to 2 episodes with Negan lining them up.
You see them as like one whole
I see them as like one episode, yeah. Introduction of the best villain in my opinion.
Okay.
And
so you don't think the governor is the best villain?
I don't think he's the best villain, but I thought he was good. I enjoyed him.
So, speaking of best moments, what do you think are the worst moments of the show? I think the introduction of the trash people. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the trash people. I fucking deleted that shit in my memory because it was so bad. The trash people, yeah. And then they like didn't speak English. It's been like it was like 5 years into the apocalypse and they like forgot how to speak English.
There's a reason for that.
No, don't try to justify it.
No, there is, because it has to do with the CRM. Because Jadis worked for the CRM. It was they were there in secret. Like that language was, they were pretending they were trying to not seem like a threat, and they were trying for other. They didn't want other.
Were they all part of CRM? I thought it was just Jadis.
That's not 100% clear.
I don't know if they were.
Jadis 100% was part of the CRM. I think her like close friends that she cared about were part of the CRM. That's why they didn't want anything to do with Negan and Rick, because they were just there. They were collecting people. They tried to take Gabriel. They tried to take Negan, and then eventually they took Rick. But they are a horrible group.
That was a weird arc.
It's still a horrible arc, despite the explanation. Like that's garbage. Like no pun intended. The trash people are like the only thing in The Walking Dead that I think is like actual trash.
Yeah.
Almost unwatchable.
I wouldn't say it's a one moment or one arc, other than just the pacing being really bad in a lot of moments. Like I was saying with what happens after with the aftermath with Negan when he's
Sure.
first introduced. Like that was the worst for me.
There's the episode that has like Terra, the episode that focuses on Terra.
I literally don't remember that at all.
I do.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, where like the ocean side, the ocean group.
The Oceanside people are kind of goofy to me and weirdly feel awkward in the story.
Yeah.
There are a lot of characters that really annoyed me, like Henry.
I thought Harry was fine.
Henry sucked, dude. Anyone who had this moral high ground, it's like, do you know what world you live in?
He
You can't
doesn't.
have... Right, but other people need to be better at explaining that to him, and that's why he died. The whole issue with the Whisperers could have been avoided if he wasn't such a fucking Captain America looking ass.
He was trying to be a good person. You can't fault.
You can't be a
someone.
good person in that world.
Sure, you can.
No, you can't.
Yeah, you can. Rick's a good person.
No, he's not. What the fuck are you talking about?
Ezekiel's a good person. Actually season 11, the last one that you haven't seen yet, I think it has an arc there that is pretty garbage. They run into like a group that's religious. They were like ex-military militia, and their leader, his name is Pope, and that it's like 4 or 5 episodes, and it gets close to trash people.
Shit.
But it's not the entire 11th, because the 11th season is like 30 episodes or something.
So they never bring in the Commonwealth?
They do bring in the Commonwealth.
Oh, they do.
And the Commonwealth, I'd say, is mid. Like, just like it was in the comics.
Okay.
It's not any better or any worse than it was in the comics. It's exactly what it was in the comics. It's kind of... It's actually so funny to go back to the first season and hear Rick actually say the N-word on camera.
Does he say that?
He does. Because when Merle is shooting the walkers from the street and then Rick comes in, Merle, like, spots out his, like, racist and Nazi shit, and he says the N-word. And then Rick knocks him out, and he's like, this is not about N-words, and this isn't that. And he actually does. Look it up. I'm serious. He says it. Look it up.
What? I
Yeah.
don't remember that.
He does.
That's why I like the show.
Because it was racist.
Yeah.
And Daryl's bike, which was Merle's bike, has, like, a Nazi or, like, swastika on it or something like that.
Daryl would definitely be super racist in real life.
Well,
But they had to like get rid of that quality in order for him to.
But if you look, his bike to this day still has that insignia on it.
Always still has the
It still
swastika.
has, it's not a swastika. It's like a cross, I think, or something like that.
It's like a KKK thing.
Yeah, but it's because it was Merle's bike. It was never his bike to begin with. But it's still funny to see.
You could have scratched that out with the marker.
Maybe. I'm surprised they haven't removed it, but they did tone down Daryl's like hickness.
Yeah.
But I think that also works in favor of his character, like because Merle died and he becomes more like Rick.
Well, I like the character arc where he was in conflict with Merle's way of doing things, and he wanted to kind of like be his own person.
That's why he's like has such a great connection with Carol, because Carol helped him like transition to a more leadership, caring role.
Yeah. What are your, in terms of the other shows, the other spin-offs, are they worth watching for someone like me who's only really seen The Walking Dead? Like, is it worth it to go and watch fucking Daryl in Paris or whatever?
I don't think any of the spin-offs are worth watching unless you're like me. And even if you're like me, you probably shouldn't. I probably shouldn't have watched them. I mean, I'm somebody that likes to know everything, like catch all the details or whatever. And the ones who live had like 1 or 2 details there from other shows that I caught that you probably didn't.
I watched like 3 seasons of Fear the Walking Dead.
You watched
so
the good seasons.
I can speak to it a little bit. I thought it was pretty solid, the seasons that I saw.
You saw the first 3.
I saw up to when they left like the military base.
Yeah.
And similarly with the Rick leaving, they at that point had killed enough characters from the original season where I was like not interested in following the story anymore.
Yeah.
That's why I stopped.
You stopped watching when Morgan came in. You mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's what I was gonna say. If Fear the Walking Dead is worth watching, the first 3 seasons I say are worth watching, just to go back with the understanding that you should stop watching after that, because the first 3 seasons are actually solid and a different world. You see the world of The Walking Dead from a different lens.
There were some interesting characters. I really liked the older Spanish guy.
Daniel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked the black dude. He was a strong actor.
Coleman Domingo.
Yeah.
Nick, the drug addict.
I
liked him.
I did like that the different types of environments. Like they were in Mexico for a little
LA.
bit. They were in LA, so we got to see them in
Texas.
in a big city.
What'd you think of like the family?
I liked there was the boat they had the boat arc where they were. So that was different. The family.
Yeah, like the main family, like Madison, Travis. And...
Yeah, I liked them, and that's why I stopped. I thought it was. I was like, when the husband died.
That was a crazy.
Like, oh fuck yeah. Like, and then after that, the show kind of fell apart for me. That's like the beginning of the end.
He wanted to leave the show. The World Beyond, which is like the one with the kids.
Fuck out of here.
The one that sets up the CRM and all that stuff. That's an awful show. I think it's probably the worst one. It's terrible.
I didn't even know that was a show.
It's absolutely terrible. Actually, it's not the worst one, but it's really bad. I just remembered another one. Tales of the Walking Dead.
No. Forget about those. I mean the main ones.
So you mean Daryl and Dead City?
Yeah.
No, I don't think they're worth watching. I think that they're worth watching. I think that they might eventually be worth watching. I think Dead City and Daryl are both mid. They have their moments, for sure, that are rewatchable and everything. But I wouldn't recommend, unless you're like me, like I wouldn't say they're mid.
So we'll let you suffer through them, and if you think we should watch
if they end up going, I could see them eventually being worth something.
Okay.
But right now, no.
Question for you. Do you think that there's a world where all these characters reunite together again?
I think that is the only world that we should be living in. I think that should happen. If that doesn't happen, it would be a huge disservice to the fans, and it would feel like a slap in the face. I think eventually, I don't know how, because of what Dead City does in the end, and of what Daryl does in the end. I don't know how they plan on fucking merging all this, but I think that
they have to.
It has to.
They have to.
They have to all reunite, and it has to end.
It has to. Yes.
And then take their break, and then 10 years from now.
No, just pull the plug, man.
They're not.
It's the whole franchise to me. It's like your beloved uncle that you grew up with, and he made you smile, and he took you to the fair, and he fucking gave you lollipops, and now he's in a fucking coma at the hospital, and they're just keeping him alive through a fucking feeding tube.
It's not that bad.
And just pull the plug on the poor guy and move on with your life.
I wouldn't say it's that bad.
I think a lot of people are going to agree with me.
Sure, because a lot of people...
This is coming from someone who loves my uncle.
I
love my uncle very much. I don't want to see him suffering like this anymore, okay?
I understand. I think generally, I think people... It's a show that... This happens with all shows. Like, when a show goes on too long, it's natural for the majority of people to just get tired of it. They don't want to keep watching. Even if it gets good again, people aren't going to tune in because they're tired of it. They don't want to see any more of it. And the only reason why the show stays on is because of that hardcore fan base that will keep watching it, like the real hardcores. But everybody else that, still love the uncle and everything, they got tired of it because it's natural. It's too much of a thing.
We both love our uncle, right?
Yeah.
You love him, so you want to keep him alive. I love him, and I want his pain to end.
No, now we're getting into like the literal basis of your metaphor, because if it was an actual uncle, I would want him dead. But this is a television show. I want to keep seeing more of it.
No, you don't, because those memories I have of the show are gone, and I will never get them again. You're living off of nostalgia.
No, there's still good moments in the new shows, like I said, but it's not
worth it to watch so many hours and hours of content to get a couple of good moments.
But it's not even that bad. Like, it's still pretty above average television.
They should have wrapped it up.
They did fuck up a lot along the way, but anything can be fixed.
No, because eventually these characters are going to be like, I've had enough. I want to move on with my life.
And I think that's where they're going.
Okay, another fucking 10 years to get there?
No, I think it's just like another 4 or 5.
No, I think it's going to be like, they're going to milk that shit.
They are, but they don't have to milk it with these characters. They can milk it in a proper way. They could show another part of the world. Like, one of the more interesting parts of Daryl is that it's in France. Like, they could show The Walking Dead, but in a different part of the world. They could show The Walking Dead 30 years into the apocalypse with different characters. Like, they need to let go of
these characters. But then no one will watch.
I don't think so. I think that if the writing is good, I think people will watch, because it's a zombie genre show, and there isn't much zombie genre stuff out there right now.
Because it was oversaturated for so many years.
It was oversaturated, but there is still a hunger for it.
They would need to do some kind of hugely new take on it in order for it to be.
And
And you know, it's possible.
It's possible, and I think at some point we're gonna get a fucking 1-to-1 remake of the actual comic. It'll either be animated or it'll be live action.
That is an excellent idea. This is the first thing you said that I really agreed with you today.
Wow. Okay.
They should make an animated 1-to-1 of the comics.
Yeah, and they should make it look like the comic book.
Yeah. Wow. Robert Kirkman, this is for you.
I'm pretty sure they thought of that already.
Why haven't they done that?
I'm sure it's in the books to have.
Holy shit. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Maybe once they finish milking their
characters.
Their dead uncle. Any last words on anything we discussed?
Are you gonna keep watching The Ones Who Live?
Yes, I liked the first episode. I was intrigued, and I want to see where the story goes.
Okay.
Again, this all goes back to, for me, it's Rick's story. I want to see where Rick's story takes it.
What if
where it ends?
What if the quality dips a little bit in the next few episodes? Will you still keep watching?
I will stick around as long as Rick is involved.
Okay. Yeah, well, you know my answer already. I'm gonna watch it until I die.
Yeah. I used to always joke in high school, like I could never commit suicide because I need to know how The Walking Dead ends.
And you still can't. You need to know what happens to Rick.
I was mostly talking about the comics, but I would love to hear other people's thoughts on who they think is right and who, if people are even watching this freaking franchise still, or if we're the only ones.
There's about 1 million people tuning in each week.
Okay.
In terms of like the viewers for all the spin-offs, it's been about 1 million. Far from the 17.5 million that watch, but still, people are gonna agree with you. Like, I'm in the Walking Dead community. Most people agree with you.
Well, there you go. There you have it. Well, here's to things getting better.
You know, at the end of the day, we both want the show to be
succeed.
at its highest point.
Yes, but
some of us are just more stubborn
the
than
past is in the past.
You can relive the past.
No, you can't.
Can't repeat the past.
No.
Why, of course you can.
My hope is that the show ends as soon as possible because they can just put as much good shit together in a couple of seasons and just wrap it up, put a nice little bow on it, even though they should have done that years and years ago, and just call it a day.
This is what we have. We have to accept what we
Call
have.
it a day.
Yeah.
Well,
Cheers.